Hi guys, welcome to Say It Takes, Take 8. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Thea, a registered nurse here in the UK and in the Philippines, and a former IELTS coach. And for today's vlog, I'm going to share an overview of my UKRN journey or the timeline of my UK application. But before we start, please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell button so you'll be notified of my next video. And if you're ready, sit back, relax, and enjoy watching. In a nutshell, I had a successful application within a year of starting the process, and that is based from my experience. I've known people who have done it faster, or you could take your time and go a bit slower. It's all up to you. It would depend on your personal circumstances and motivation. So let's go back to 2017 when I started my application, and I will also mention my review center, my agency, and my employer. So the first step for me was to study with a review center, and the question I got asked was whether it's necessary to have a review center or can you self-study. So before I took my English test, I was quite confident with my English, but I wasn't confident to take the IELTS on my own without the proper guidance and coaching from a review center, especially back then when they were still requiring a score of 7 in all sub-tests and they weren't accepting OET yet. So for me, having a review center is a must. So let's start the timeline. So February 2017, I enrolled with Niner, but I wasn't 100% sure yet about the UK, so I still lack focus and motivation. I didn't start reviewing right away. So around May 2017, I've already attended a few classes and I started doing practice exercises here and there. I found listening and speaking the easiest among the subtests for me. I found writing really difficult. Even though I love writing, I just think IELTS writing is tricky. And it wasn't much, but it was a start. And so I will consider May 2017 as my starting point. So things changed when I started looking for an agency and employer. And that's the next stage for me, finding an agency and employer. Okay, so moving forward, I took out my notes because it's been 4 years and I couldn't remember the dates. So let's continue. So July 2017, that's when I submitted my requirements to my agency of choice. And so that's going to be like the initial application where you send an email, send your email with your curriculum vitae or your resume. And I was shortlisted after 6 days, according to my notes, very detailed. So my agency was IPAMS because I really didn't look further in terms of agency, in terms of choosing an agency because they've been in the business for a long time and I felt like they have good track record and they have established their credibility. So I went with IPAMS. And from my experience naman, I was really happy with their support. I'm very detail oriented when it comes to requirements, very, very makulit. I remember emailing them with all my queries and clarifications, and they would give me a very clear and organized response. So that's what I like about them. And they're very professional and very patient from my experience. So after 3 weeks, I was invited for an interview with the employer, and that was around August 2017. So my original employer was a company called Continental Travel Nurse. So they are a travel nurse company affiliated with different hospitals in the UK. And after the interview, I was given a conditional job offer, but of course, deployment is still subject to completion of all the prerequisites. And after that, once I had an employer, it just changed my focus. All of a sudden, I was more motivated. I was doing a lot of practice, writing exercises after that, and that brings us to the next stage. So the next stage is your English language requirement or your English proficiency examination. And as soon as I was ready, I booked and took my test on October 2017, and that would be the IELTS, specifically the academic module for UKVI. There's no other option back then, and you could book it with British Council or IDP. And thankfully, I achieved my target scores. So at first, NMC was only accepting IELTS for the English proficiency examination with a score of 7 in all sub-tests. And then eventually, they accepted OET with a score of B, which is equivalent to an IELTS score of 7. And then later on, they have lowered the IELTS score for writing to 6.5, and then they followed it with lowering the score for OET writing to C+. So after IELTS, it took me 2 months to complete the next stage, which is the NMC online registration and CBT. So CBT stands for computer-based test, which is part one of NMC's test of competence. So first you have to create your NMC online account, and then you have to book your CBT with Pearson VUE, which is the testing center. Okay, so it took me 2 months because my finances were just really tight and I almost had no money anymore. So for a month, I had to do a bit of side hustle, which had something to do with thesis writing. And once I was happy with my earnings, replenished my fund a little, which was just mainly for food and transportation when traveling to Manila. I then facilitated my promissory letter. So basically, I requested for my employer to pay in advance for my CBT and NMC online application fee. Normally, I would have to pay for it, then it will just be reimbursed on my salary in the UK. But since I couldn't fund it at the time, I just requested for my employer to pay for it in advance to avoid any delays. And for the promissory letter, I needed two guarantors with their IDs and proof of income. I had it notarized, then returned it to my agency and employer. Then they booked and paid the CBT for me. So once that's settled, I spent another month to study. It was just self-review. I borrowed a book from my friend, which was the Royal Marsden Manual of Clinical Nursing Procedures, and by the end of December 2017, I took my CBT and thankfully I passed it. So next is to complete your documents for the NMC assessment. So this is how I remember it, that there are forms that I just uploaded and forms that I mailed to the NMC. I'm just taking out my notes again. So for the documents that I uploaded, so these are the following: my passport, birth certificate, and NBI clearance. And then there are downloadable forms that had to be filled out and posted along with other supporting documents. And these are the following. So from my university, they had to complete a form and I attached it with my TOR and RLE hours. I wasn't sure if I included my diploma. So next is from my employer, I needed two referees, and for each referee, they had to complete a form and a supporting letter. So next is from my doctor. So he had to complete a form, and that would serve as the declaration of good health. And last is from PRC. They also had to complete the form, and I can't remember, I wasn't sure if I attached the board certificate. And then I mailed these to the NMC, and I finished mailing around early February 2018. So once everything is mailed to the NMC, you had to wait for around 4 to 10 weeks for your decision letter. So next stage is medical exams, decision letter, and certificate of sponsorship. Okay, so in the first week of March 2018, that's when I had my first set of medical examinations, and that was for occupational health clearance. So that included the following. So first is the Mantoux test, or the tuberculosis skin test, along with immunology bloods. So that's hepatitis B and C screening, MMR, and varicella titer. And by the end of March 2018, my decision letter from the NMC arrived. So moving forward, by the end of April 2018, I had another set of medical examinations. So next is chest x-ray at IOM Manila, which is a British Embassy approved clinic. So this is specifically for UK visa filing. So on the same day, I had my pre-employment or pre-deployment medical examinations, which is the standard for exit clearance. It's with another clinic, and with that, I had to do another chest x-ray. So within a day, I had two chest x-rays, and these are the other tests that I had. So I had a CBC with blood typing, FBS, HIV/AIDS screening, urinalysis with pregnancy test, fecalysis, physical exam, and psychological exam. It was a long day of medical examinations, and a few days after that, I received my certificate of sponsorship from my employer. So next is final job offer, contract signing, and visa processing. So by the first week of May 2018, I received my final job offer. Then I signed my POEA approved employment contract. So I ended up being turned over to another employer. So I was no longer contracted as a travel nurse, but as a nurse for direct hire with Cambridge University Hospitals. So next, I'm ready for the visa processing. Things are really moving quickly at this stage. So first, I completed the online application, and then I had to schedule for the biometrics or personal appearance at VFS Global, where they had to take my photo and fingerprints. Next is visa release and deployment. So my visa was released on the same month, and initially it was called Tier 2 General Work Visa, which was replaced eventually with Skilled Worker Visa or Health and Care Worker Visa. So your visa would appear as a vignette or sticker on your passport, and that would be valid for a month. So within a month, your ticket has to be booked, and once you're in the UK, you have to claim your BRP or your biometric residence permit, which would serve as your official document of your right to work or stay in the UK and as your visa as well. So from my experience, my agency and employer booked my ticket straight away. So I had my PDOS, which is the pre-departure orientation seminar, and I received my OEC, which is the overseas employment certificate, and I had another pregnancy test 2 days before my flight. And by the end of May 2018, I was on my flight to the UK, and I arrived to the UK safely after a long flight with Saudi Airlines. And there you have it. So I arrived in the UK within a year of starting my review, which was from May 2017 to May 2018. So for the very last stage, that would be clinical shifts, OSCE, and NMC registration. So we had a few days to rest, and June 2018 was our official start date, and it was a mixture of clinical shifts and study days. So we started work as a Band 3 OSCE nurse awaiting PIN, and our role is that of a healthcare assistant or healthcare support worker. And during our study days, we just study and prepare for the OSCE. So by August 2018, I took my OSCE, which is part 2 of NMC's test of competence, and thankfully I passed, and after that I was able to complete my registration with the NMC as an adult registered nurse. And that's it, guys. That is the overview of my UKRN journey and the timeline of my UK application. If you have plans to work here or already have an ongoing application, I hope this video gave you an idea about what to expect and how to prepare better for it. You can ask me your questions by leaving comments in the comment section, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you all the best and all the success in your journey. This is Taya, and see you on my next take. Bye!